Hi, this is Neil for Pixelsmithstudios, and today we're interviewing Moray Rhoda. He's doing a thesis on animation, and for the purposes of this thesis, he needs to complete a survey with multiple input points. Just a disclaimer, I do apologize for the amount of background noise. I'm recording this in a busy office at the moment. It's a bit of a hot desking situation, so I unfortunately did not have a quiet room. I should have booked one, but I didn't because I didn't plan ahead. I don't have enough foresight. So, without further ado, over to Moray. Can you quickly tell us who you are and what you do?
Hi, thanks, Neil. Thanks for the interview. I'm currently working at City Varsity. I'm a lecturer in the animation and multimedia department. So I'm teaching pre-production and digital, like Photoshop and stuff like that at City Varsity. But I'm also full-time studying at CPUT. So that's where the whole survey thing comes in. I'm looking to up my qualifications. And part of that is doing a topic that you need for your thesis. So my topic is actually animation graduate work readiness versus the industry needs. So what I'm looking for here is we try to prepare students as much as we possibly can to go out there and start working and get jobs. Industry obviously needs graduates and other people to come into their businesses, and they would prefer it if the student was as prepared as possible, bearing in mind that you can't learn everything at an institution. So I just want to see how that lines up, how the teaching side of things, not just for City Varsity, as a full disclosure, I should also mention that this isn't a specific educational institute um, asking me to do this. This is a project that I'm doing as part of my studies for CPUT. So I will make the information available to any other institutions that might need it as well or might be interested.
Okay, so essentially the main purpose of your survey is to align what the knowledge depth, what the knowledge depths of the students is compared to what the knowledge requirements of the industry is, and then align that to the
Yes.
current industry standard.
Yeah. So knowledge and skills, it's a fact-finding mission because I've got anecdotal reports from people that are in the animation industry or motion design, visual effects, and things like that. But anecdotal is not factual. So what I'm trying to establish here is what are as much as I possibly can, and obviously the more people do the survey, the more accurate my data will be. Um, what is the state of play right now in the animation industry with regards to software and things like that, as well as the kind of skills that they need people to have. So, knowledge and skills from their side versus what educational institutes are teaching.
Okay, so what are sorry, so what are some of the general directions that you are looking to go with this survey? So, for example, when you say you're trying to find out what students know or how industry ready they are, and then
Yeah.
also, are you also trying to find out how aware existing studios are of what is being taught, and when a student finishes, how
Yes.
much they already know and how much they need to coach them further to get them to work on their internal
Yeah.
pipelines?
Yeah, so the survey basically tries to establish firstly what sector of the animation industry the company might fall into. Are they 2D, 3D? Are they visual effects? Or are they motion design? Or are they a mix of all of those? Then from there, do they ever deal with interns and um, how long would an internship be and do they have paid internships and things like that. Obviously, I'm trying to gather data with regards to the different regions where the companies might be, because we're looking at the South African situation as a whole. Um, because our students or students in general, graduates, aren't necessarily going to work in the province that they studied. They might end up going elsewhere. And then from there, what I'm looking at is if you've had a student work with you at some point or the other, or work within your studio, um, from that observation of the student, from giving them actual tasks to do within the studio, how good are they at using well, the software is one part of it, but also how good are they at planning what they actually need to complete, how good they are working individually, whether they have teamwork abilities, you know. So I'm also looking at the soft skills. It's not just the direct things that are being taught.
Mm. So then, with that in mind, why particularly this subject for your thesis?
Well, it comes from myself. I try to stay in contact with students that I've left. I'm not always successful at that, but um, even though I qualified many, 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 many years ago, decades ago, I still remember what a huge mission it was to actually get my foot in the door and find the first place to work, and how unprepared I actually was for working life. Um, and I like to think that I wasn't a bad student. I was just underprepared by my institution, which by coincidence happened to be CPUT back in those days as well. So it's kind of funny that I'm doing this while studying for them. So for me, it's really what I want to put the part of the thesis after you've done your research, after you've done the analysis, is also to create a design solution for the whole thing. So I'm looking at a design solution where I can put this kind of information together in a site or on an app that would be accessible for students completing their studies. So there's that component to it as well. Putting a resource there for currently studying um,
Mm.
students, or for people that are even thinking about going into the animation field, to kind of have a clearer roadmap of what they could actually end up doing, or what is needed from industry, so that when they're looking at an institution, and let's say for instance, I'm not saying that this will be the result of the research, but if I have um, 90% of respondents saying that they work in the 3D animation field, and what they require is abilities in using Maya as an example, then that gives the prospective student an idea of, if I'm looking at an institution, um, I'm more likely to be employed if I actually go study at a place that teaches that specific software as part of what it's teaching. You know what I mean? So that's part of the aim of this.
Yeah, that brings me to another question I remember asking someone, and this comes down to the difference between a skill, applying a tool set, and craft. Um,
Yeah.
so, would you then go as far as saying that your thesis would help in getting students to understand that different studios have different pipelines, so they use different softwares? Therefore, they need to be able to be flexible between the tools they use. Um, Bearing in mind what you just said now, if when they choose their course of study, they will look at a studio that maybe has, they will look at a school that teaches animation using Maya because they might already know they want to work for a studio that uses Maya, or they would probably look at a studio that uses Nuke for compositing, because when they
Yeah.
want to go into VFX, they know that they want to work for a studio that uses Nuke in their pipeline. So, would your thesis then aid them in looking, in knowing that they
Yeah.
need to do that research?
Yeah. I'm hoping that it would, because in terms of the educational institutes, an institute doesn't need to necessarily list that it's using Maya. It can say 3D software, right? So 3D software, we know that could be, I don't know, Cinema 4D or Blender or whatever. But it enables the student to ask that question when,
Mm.
okay, you guys say that you teach 3D. What is the software that you guys are using? Because I've seen this study out there that says that X amount of companies in the Western Cape are using whichever one.
Mm.
So there's that aspect to it. But I'm also asking questions such as, or studio, how important the understanding of animation principles is, for instance, because this is something that's been brought up multiple times to me by people in industry, is that they would rather spend 3 months teaching somebody software than to have a graduate walk in there that does not understand animation principles, because um, that is more difficult to get into somebody's head if they're not if they weren't taught it at an institution. So again, I'm not saying that that's necessarily what would show from my survey or from my results when I analyze it, because that's anecdotal. That's,
Mm.
I don't know,
Yeah,
X amount of people have spoken to me specifically, but it is a question that I pose in the survey,
yeah,
because I would like a more quantitative
yeah,
version of it. How important is storyboarding?
yeah.
All those kind of skills.
No, I completely understand, and it's also not a negative point to raise. It's actually a very constructive point to raise, with the keyword being constructive,
Yeah,
because there's a big difference between learning to use a tool or a program and having pre-existing knowledge, or at least 1 year's worth of student experience in a certain field. So, say for example, let's take animation. You have your 12 principles of animation. You're not going to learn those principles by learning to use a software program. You're going to learn those principles by looking them up and practicing them, regardless of the medium you practice them in. It could be you draw out your animation on paper, frame by frame, if you want to go that far. Or you might have learned about the principles of animation using Adobe Animate, which used to be the old Adobe Flash. Or
yeah,
you could even have learned your 12 principles of animation using Maya or Modo or Blender or even 3ds
yeah,
Max. So I think it's a very good view to look at, or a bit of data to analyze. Um, I didn't study. Like, I had 1 year's worth of training, and we learned how to use Maya in that 1 year.
yeah,
Everything else I've learned outside of Maya. Everything. So I do
yeah,
agree that's a good question to raise, because you don't have to go spend your time in a tool. I would actually say go spend your time balancing where you spend your energy and your focus, because essentially the tools do make a difference, but the more important thing is how much love do you give to your craft.
yeah. That's exactly it. And I think a lot of the time as well. I mean, this is hopefully the survey gives enough data so that I can give some direction, but obviously it's not going to be a cure all for
Mm.
like plotting somebody's career path, because like you say, there's a lot of things that you kind of only learn properly once you're actually out there. So no matter how
Yes,
well prepared you are by an institution, there are going to be gaps. I'm
yes,
trying to establish where those gaps are as much as possible. I'm also
yeah,
asking on your topic of what you just said. One of the questions is as well, self-trained job seekers. Are they? There's a question that that is somebody that's graduate that spent 3 years studying better prepared than somebody that has just had the passion for it, and they've gone online and they've taught themselves just about everything that they know? Um, is that person better or worse, or how do they compare? Well, I'm not asking it better or worse, but
yeah,
in the survey, the question I do put that question there as well, because sometimes somebody who has that kind of motivation but lack of funds,
mm,
they might actually have the mindset that enables them to hit the ground a little bit faster out in industry. Who
yeah.
knows? So I'm asking the question again to see if studios have experience of that.
Yeah, because it also comes down to how much the individual applies themselves. You could
Yeah,
have an individual that's self-taught as well as an individual that is taught by an institution, and
yeah,
both end up being really high quality hires because they both could hit the ground running, and the only difference is where they learned.
yeah.
So I can understand that question as well. I like this train of thinking because I feel it will help shine a good light on questions that people could and should be asking before they sign up for an institution, regardless of where they sign up. And they
Yeah,
should ask the institutions these questions as well, like, um, I want to get industry ready, knowing that when I'm finished studying here, how much time must I spend additionally to gain
yeah,
real world experience to make myself industry ready. Personally, I don't think a student who just got a certificate today, walking out of a college, and having spent no additional time learning, would be industry ready, because there's more to working in a team than sitting in a classroom and learning what they teach you in a classroom.
yes, that's exactly right. And also that's also something else that I wonder about is if you as an industry person could create a model for students to work their projects through. Uh, do you assess that student individually? Because that's a lot of our projects at City Varsity, for instance, is set up that way that we're assessing the individual. But within animation itself, teamwork is such an important thing. Um, would somebody from industry prefer it if there was a bigger focus on team-based assignments and that side of things as well? So yeah, I obviously couldn't put 10 million questions into it. Otherwise, it would have been too long. And I know people in the industry are busy, but I've tried to
Mm,
focus it as much as possible to get really useful information for people. But
mm.
the most important thing about the survey is that it only means something if people actually go out there and they fill it in. Without
Yeah.
data, it's a bunch of questions that are
Mm.
unresolved.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with that. But it's good questions, and I'll be filling out the survey myself once this article is live on the blog, and then I hope
Awesome.
some of my insights might help you as well. I'll ask Ruan to also fill it out, even though he's not in the animation industry. His search engine experience about the animation industry might actually be very relevant.
Okay, perfect.
And then
That would be great.
yeah, I think that's going to be a really fun exercise to do. And then so we're going to put the link in the article for anyone who wants to fill out the survey for Moray, and we ask that you please do and provide your input and experience. It's just going to help him, and from my understanding, this scope of data that will be collected might in turn also help institutions hosting an animation or games and entertainment course to know what the industry is looking for, and to look at what students are asking, what work what employers are asking for, and find a way to curate their courses, that their courses help get students industry ready in a more efficient manner. That's my hope for what the data will be able to help you with. And then if we have any questions about the survey, or if we would like to reach out to you about certain questions or topics in the survey, would there be a email we can send you, or could we perhaps, so we can just email you? We
Yeah,
will. Okay, I'll get the email from you after the interview, and then I'll drop the email in the article as well. Uh, and then
uh,
yeah,
yeah. Thanks, Neil. I'll be very happy to answer any additional questions that people have. It's not going to be a top secret report, other than your personal information will obviously be protected. But the analysis of the data will be available for people within industry. It will be available for students. It will be available for institutions. Obviously, what people take from it and the decisions they make from there, I can't control any of that. But I'm
yeah,
just hoping that it's a useful tool for people to use to actually yeah, help both industry and help students and help institutions that are teaching these students.
Yeah, that's actually a good point to raise there because working in a corporate environment, I've realized from talking to data analysts, when you receive the data and you work through it, all that data does is provide you with a lens to look into a certain area where you need additional knowledge. Um, then using that data that you get through that lens and applying it correctly, you can improve multiple things like your service offering to clients, in this case institutions to students, um, industry established institutions, studios can then cater more to the colleges, and the colleges can then also reach out to the studios and start setting up programs to generate more data. um, but yeah, essentially all this data will be is a lens to look at what is currently being fed back. This data in itself wouldn't do anything by itself. It needs to be analyzed and applied.
Yes, exactly.
So yeah, and there's no way that you can control how that data will be analyzed and applied because you're not part of the people that is analyzing it or the teams that are analyzing it for their
Yeah,
individual places. So each place will look
yeah,
at the data from a different lens with a different intention, and they will apply that data with a different intention from their end. But
yes. So
essentially, yeah,
yeah, so the main aim here is to get accurate data and to get enough feedback so that it is relevant. Obviously, the less respondents there are, the less weight one can put behind the opinions because we have a lot of um, animation industry professionals and a lot of companies out there. And the more people respond and the more people put their experience to bear on the questions, the better the data is going to be, and the better it will be for people that want to use the data. With a lack of response means that it's almost falling in a anecdotal kind of space where it's just my I won't say my opinion, but it's the opinion of a few people. Let's put it that way. So
yeah.
yeah, this is where the crux of the matter lies, is the amount of people that fill in the survey.
Yeah. Well, let's see if we can get a lot of people to fill it in for you and give you a lot of sleepless nights analyzing the data.
Absolutely, the more the merrier. And also, what I intend to do is, firstly, the time period that I have for the survey to remain up is a little bit limited. So it's until the end of July, until the end of this month. At that point, I need to cut it off because I need to start collating that data and analyzing it and putting it into my thesis and start making my um,
For sure.
conclusions from there.
For sure.
But I intend to run the same survey again next year. There's also a little section that at the end of it that says, are there any topics that weren't raised that you feel is important that you might want to discuss? So that might become part of the survey next year. Um, but the idea is to then compare this year's results and number of respondents with next year, and then I will run the one for next year longer for a longer time period to allow for more responses. But again, it's kind of really important that I do get those responses
Yeah.
back this year as well.
Okay. That's not a problem. So, for those of you listening to this interview, as you heard, this particular survey will only be up until the 30th or the 31st of July, which is a Saturday and Sunday. So, for your sakes and for Moray's sakes, I would say please submit your feedback by no later than Wednesday the 27th. Then that gives you a grace period of 2 or so more weekdays. That if you forgot the 27th, the 28th, and the 29th is all right. But ideally, we all want to enjoy our weekends. So I wouldn't consider the 30th and the 31st as days that you can submit because you'd much rather be out. having a coffee with a friend than sitting at a computer filling out a survey.
Yeah, and it'll take 20 to 30 minutes. Answer the questions that are applicable to you, skip the ones that aren't, because the industry is visual effects and it's 2D and it's 3D and it's motion design. It's a lot of things. So if there's a question that's not applicable to you, you have no obligation to answer that one. So if you do have a gap, 20 to 30 minutes of your time, I would highly appreciate it if you could. Um, yeah, thanks very much for everybody who's willing to do it.
Yeah, and we can only pay you in thank yous if you were expecting payment for doing this. But know that by completing this survey, you are assisting multiple people and you are assisting the industry that we all love so much in helping build it for a better industry, a better college as well, college access for students moving forward. So you're helping essentially improve what we have now, which I think for me that is enough payment. But yeah, thank you, Moray. And then it's now midday by me, so I'm gonna say have a good day further and have a good evening, and then good luck for the rest of the week.
Okay, great. Thanks very much, Neil, and thanks everybody for listening all the way through to the end.
Yeah, if you made it this far, then you deserve a naughty badge. Cheers, guy. Bye.
Bye.